Electro science.
Electro. Why do we watch the stars? Are we alone in the universe? What are atoms? Electro. Why are we here? Where did we come from? E equals MC. Electro. Dinosaurs. Periodic table of elements. Electrology. What is astrology?
Electro science.
Here we have a chocolate cake. Now, if you were to take a chocolate cake and cut it in half, what would you have? Let's find out. We have 2 knives. Which should we use? Preferably this one. Now that you've cut the cake, what do you have? You've got 2 pieces of cake. Is that all you have? No. What you actually have inside of, let's say, this half, the smaller half, are millions and millions of atoms. If you were to keep cutting the cake, eventually you would have just 1 atom. But how many cuts would that take? Roughly 85. But obviously this knife is not sharp enough, and I brought this one too, but this probably couldn't do the job either. So is it possible to cut it down to just 1 atom? The cake is not very crummy, so it could be, but not with a knife. In a laboratory conditions, you could cut it down to just 1 atom. But once you had 1 atom, are you done? No. Because you can cut an atom down even further into several different particles. Neutrons, protons, electrons. Now, an atom. Let's take neon. You see we have the nucleus with protons and neutrons. And on the outside, you see the electron clouds or rings. We see 10 electrons, which means we have neon. So this is an atom. Well, this is the diagram of an atom. We cannot actually see an atom without special tools. With the naked eye, we cannot see it. Now, the atoms in this cake, millions, like we said. Now, if we cannot cut down to 1 right here where we are. But if we could go to a laboratory, pretend we were in one and we were actually able to cut this 85 times perfectly into 1 single atom, what would be done? Could we cut it again and again and again and again? Yes, not with a knife, but with special tools. You could keep cutting an atom forever, infinitely small. It's hard to grasp how large infinity is because we have nothing to compare it to. But if you can somewhat understand, I can understand, no one can, really what infinity is, how many times, for 1,000,000 lifetimes, you could keep cutting an atom. You would have nothing to see. 1 atom by itself you couldn't see, but with special tools you could. Now, this is the best way we can relate to the universe. Because infinitely small would be the atom cut over, millions of times. The universe is the exact opposite. Instead of infinitely small, it would be infinitely large. The universe is infinitely large, which means it's filled with millions and billions of things. Billions of stars and planets and galaxies and possibly even other life. When you look at the stars in the sky at night, what are you seeing? You're seeing the past. Because when you look into the stars at night, you are not seeing what is in front of you that day, 2011. You are seeing a good 80 years into the past. Because the stars are most stars are about 80 light years away. It takes 80 years for the light to hit your eyes for what you're seeing. So really, you're looking into the past, when your grandparents were young, when your great-grandparents were still alive. Like, you are really seeing a different time period. And in 80 years from now, where the stars are, your grandchildren will be looking at and saying, they're not there. And it's very odd to think about that, because when I look at this cake, at this knife, and I see this, I'm seeing the cake in front of me. and I can touch it. It's here. But the stars are so far away, we cannot achieve the speed of light in an aircraft. It has been tested and attempted. But if we were to do that, time would literally stand still for us. Because we are moving so quickly, we would not age. You could travel close to a star. You could not go to a star. They're far too hot. But the closer you got to the speed of light, your aging would slow down. And when you return to Earth, your friends could have passed on, or several years older, decades older, and you were still maybe aged a few months. Now, why did we talk about a cake to the stars? Because the atom, representing the infinitely small, or infinite amount of small, representing the universe being very large. The universe full of stars, planets, galaxies, like I said. In ancient times, we would look at the stars because we didn't have computers and television and newspapers and things to read. So we would look to the stars, and why? The constellations would help us navigate. We would know when the seasons are. The sun brought us warmth. We would navigate by the stars. So all these things in the sky help us, but the planets apparently do nothing. But we want to think that they are part of our everyday lives. And they are. But not really in the trivial way as astrology would promise, but in the deepest way. When you look at your horoscope, someone wrote your horoscope. It did not come from the planets. They most likely did not even look to the planets. Now, when astrology first came to be, it was considered a legitimate science because they would look to the stars, the planets, and think, okay, this is what happened when you were born. When I was born, Mars was this bright and Venus was like this. So that determines my pathway in life. Horoscopes would tell you that when you were born, if Mars was a certain brightness or this Venus was a certain place in its rotation around the sun, that certain things are going to be this way in your life, which doesn't make much sense. Does that mean every single person in the world who was born at night in March 24th of 1993 is going to have the exact same pattern of life that I will? I highly doubt it. Now, horoscopes. I'm going to show you some horoscopes. Here we go. I have a laptop here. Whoops. And I have got two different astrology websites. Move that. We've got horoscope.com and I believe, oops, wrong one. Astrology.com. Perfectly named. Alright, let's start with horoscope.com. Now this says, "You're looking gorgeous today, Aries, and have likely noticed the admiring glances you've received. Your passion is running high, and you may be able to spend this evening with a special someone. Fulfill your romantic fantasies, light candles, use your best china, and dress with sensuality in mind. Your partner will appreciate the effort. You're bound to have a wonderful evening." Okay. This is going to be fun. This is May 10th, 2011, which is today. Now, it's telling me I'm looking gorgeous. If you look at it, it's stating things. It says you're going to have a wonderful evening. Do this, do this, do this. Well, if you light candles, and what else did it say? Use your best china and dress nicely. Of course you're going to have a nice evening. It's not telling you you're going to have a nice evening. It's going to tell you, do these things and that'll happen. It's not predicting anything, you know what I mean? When you go to a psychic and they tell you, you're going to live forever or you're going to find $1 million, first off, neither of them are true. And second, I mean, it's a prediction. I mean, at least it's a prediction. This is not, because you can't prove it. And you could look at this, no matter how vague it is, and they're all completely vague, and in a week, you're going to go back and say, my evening did suck. It wasn't really that great. But are you really going to go back and do all the website? Wait, no, this was wrong. No, you're probably going to look the next day and like, alright, well, I'll read it again. Now, here is the second one. Here we go. If you've got kids, your good energy is right on their wavelength. If not, you may be thinking about parenthood or just eager to spend some time with fresh young minds. Alright, now when you're looking at this, already eliminated me by saying if you've got kids. And then it says if you don't have kids, then you're thinking about parenthood. It says you might be thinking about parenthood, which I'm not. I'm 18 and don't plan to have kids anytime soon. It says you're eager to spend some time with fresh young minds. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. You're going to spend time with fresh young minds. You mean others my age? You mean me as a teenager? I'm going to interact with other teenagers? You know what? Maybe there is something to this prediction thing. But you really can't base too much off these predictions, or vague statements as they actually are. Because if you do, you're really going to start living by these, and if you start living by these, you'll go crazy. It's one thing to enjoy the horoscope, but step back from it. Don't do it every day. Don't let it be a part of your life. Once you let it become a part of your life, it'll consume you. Predictions and seeing the future is considered a science, which is insulting to real science that takes years and years and hundreds of years to figure things out and have bases in things. And if everything constantly changed, there'd be no need for science because we could not figure anything out. If everything stayed the same, there'd be no need for science because, you know, everything would be one thing, everyone would know it. But we live in a world that is right between those two. Some things are the same, some things change. This is where science is. Astrology is not there. It's in our world, but it's not a science. You do not learn it in school. You cannot take a course on it in college. And if you can, it's not factual. You cannot take a test on astrology. You could get 2 astrologists. I could have them do readings on me, and they would give me completely different readings. You don't believe me? What about this? 2 things from the exact same date today, for me in Aries, told me 2 things that were completely unrelated. There's thousands of astrology websites, and they can't all keep their stories straight. So if you've got one side of a story and another side of a story completely different, you must assume that they're both wrong. Alright, I hope you've enjoyed this on astrology. Please rate and comment below.